The challenge of all of this in practical terms is to be able to trust that God's plan is good, even though what we are experiencing may not be. Paul, the Bible doesn't say that these folks don't suffer. It explicitly says they're suffering. Paul says, for I reckon that the sufferings of this present time, meaning that there are sufferings, are not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed in us. The suffering's real. The pain is real. And we had a very lengthy discussion about reevaluating pain. The suffering's real. The pain is real. Suffering and pain and trauma are not things that we're really equipped to process as good. We're not enculturated to that, and I'm not suggesting that we need to be. Feel pain and be excited, that's a little bit weird. What God is doing is good. So we've got a tension between two different realities. Resolving that cognitive dissonance, there's a psychiatrist term, resolving the cognitive dissonance. God is doing something good, I'm experiencing something bad. How do those two things match up? How do I resolve those two things? It requires we suspend our perceptions and submit them to God's declarations. My emotions tell me this is bad. My body tells me this is bad. My psyche tells me this is bad. The Bible tells me that God is doing good. I'm walking with God. Things are happening in my life that I don't like, but there is a greater good. And so despite how I feel, despite everything that I have going on around me, I'm going to trust that there is a greater good that God is doing and walk in that. It requires we walk by faith and not by sight and perceive the goodness of God at work in circumstances that are patently not good by reasonable standards. And I don't see it now, I don't get it now, I don't feel it now, I don't even know if I believe it now, but I have to find some place where I say, God's goodness is absolute. God's goodness is definite. It is not debatable. It is not subject to interpretation despite my feelings. The goodness of God is a very real thing.
Yes.
For the rational, for the modernist, for the philosophical, how do we have an assurance that what God is doing is good? We live in a world of duplicity, secrecy, and hidden agendas. So how can we trust that this invisible God is doing good? The simple but challenging answer is that because he said so works, and because he is good. How do we know that God's doing good? We know that God's doing good because God is good.
Yeah.
Scripture says, this is the message which we have heard about him and declare unto you, God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. Also says, and we have known and believed that, the love that God hath to us. God is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God is him. So if God is light and there is no darkness in him, that everything that proceeds from God is light and not darkness. God is light, there's no darkness in him. You can't get darkness out of light. If there's no darkness in him, then whatever comes out of him must be light. If God is love, then his plan for creation is love, and the only thing that proceeds from him is love. If God's doing it, it must be light, because God is light. If God's doing it, it must be love, because God is love, and there is nothing else in him but that. David exhorts the people of Israel to taste and see that the Lord is good, not to taste and see if the Lord is good. The goodness of God is absolute and without question. Therefore, if God is good, whatever proceeds from him is good, and whatever plan he is executing upon the earth and in the cosmos are absolutely, inherently, unquestionably, and immutably good, despite what I may think, feel, or experience at the time. Despite all evidence to the contrary, despite sensory overload that tells us the world around us is crashing down, despite evidence that the American electorate has lost its collective mind, God is doing something good in the cosmos that is far beyond human understanding. We lean not to our own understanding because some things we won't understand, but in all our ways acknowledge him. That is not an intellectual assent that I know that there is a God somewhere, but it is a bowing of the heart that says, if God said it's good, if I know God is a good God and God is doing something, then the good that God is doing trumps what I'm feeling.